simple things like applesauce, even like a smoothie, like a base fruit-based smoothie that's got very simple ingredients, easy to digest. And then we would teach them to work up to something more substantial. And that takes time. And we've got guys that are seniors or fifth years that maybe their whole career before a conditioning session can only do liquid carbs and something really easy. And that's okay. But then it's a next step of intra, they're going to get something more substantial.
Hello, and welcome to the Eat More Carbs podcast. I'm your host and sports dietitian, Reilly Beatty. In today's episode, we are going to chat about one of the most common sports nutrition topics I get asked about: pre-practice fueling. I've helped over 1,000 athletes in the NCAA, Olympics, professional, and high school level. All of them ask me about pre-practice fueling. Pre-practice fueling is one of the most important fueling periods and is often one of the first places I tell athletes to focus on when looking to improve their nutrition and performance. It is actually pretty crazy how much of an immediate impact eating the right things before practice can have on your performance. If you've been following me on Instagram, you know I have probably told you to eat applesauce or gummies before training. It might seem like such a random combination of foods, but I'm going to dive into this further today with my special guest, Rachel Suba, who's the Director of Sports Nutrition at USC. I know what you're thinking. Reilly, you're a UCLA Bruin. How could you have a Trojan on the podcast? I know. But today I'm making an exception because Rachel is awesome. She has a team of 5 full-time dietitians and 30 undergraduate and graduate nutrition interns, aka she has a nutrition team and a nutrition army. Rachel has been at USC for a little over a year, and it's amazing some of the things that she's done in her first year there. You are going to want to hear all the amazing things that Rachel has been up to in her first year at USC. She is not new to the sports nutrition field at all. Rachel has been a collegiate dietitian for 8 years, and she's been able to merge her love of sports, food, and helping others into a career as a sports dietitian. Rachel and I first got connected when she was at the University of Oklahoma, where she's held 3 positions between February 2020 and April 2022. Listen to her stacked resume from her time at OU. 23 Big 12 conference titles, 12 national championships, 3 college football playoff semifinal appearances, 3 bowl games, 6 wrestling NCAA tournaments, 4 NCAA March Madness tournaments, and at OU, she worked alongside 2 Heisman Trophy winners, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. AKA, this girl knows what she's talking about, and the coaching staff at OU knew how valuable she was, and it was amazing, and I'm in just so much awe of this, that Coach Lincoln Reilly and his staff actually brought Rachel with him when they left the University of Oklahoma and moved to USC in spring of 2022. I think that just such a testament to the work that Rachel is doing in the football program and the work that she started to do now at the University of Southern California. Most recently, this past season, Caleb Williams at USC was named the 2022 Heisman Trophy winner. And Rachel shares in the podcast how she was actually able to help him fuel his entire collegiate career. So when he joined the University of Oklahoma mid-year, she was able to implement some of this nutrition programming that she's going to talk about in today's podcast and help him fuel as an athlete through his entire journey at OU and now at USC. So you are going to love today's podcast. Like I mentioned, we're going to be talking all about pre-practice fueling and how you can make pre-practice fueling fun. Rachel talks about how one of her pillars as a sports dietitian and one of the pillars at USC Sports Nutrition is all foods fit. And she also talks about how she incorporates athletes' favorite foods into their pre-practice routine and into their fueling routine. Literally, guys, you are going to love it. She is so fun. I've been following her on Instagram. Again, we've been connected since her time at OU, and I see her doing so many fun things at USC. She has like a snow cone truck. She has an In-N-Out truck. She has gushers as pre-workout fueling. and it works. It works, it works, it works. And I'm so excited to dive more into her programming today and share with you some of the things that she's doing at University of Southern California. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Everybody who's listening, you guys are in for such a treat. We have Rachel Suba here. She's the director of sports nutrition at USC. She works specifically with football. She fueled the Heisman last year, and she's here to share all the deets on pre-practice fueling.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go. So we're going to jump right in. That's kind of our style over here. So why don't you explain to the listeners a little bit about your journey? You recently kind of came into this role at USC as the director of sports nutrition. So tell us a little bit about what you do at USC and your journey to become a dietitian.
Yeah. So if we go way back to when I kind of started my interest in sports nutrition, I went to culinary art school. And back in the day, I thought I wanted to be a chef, a pastry chef to be exact.
Cool.
Went to culinary art school, it was in my last 2 years of high school, was an athlete, loved food, but I also was like, maybe this is not for me. So I kind of transitioned, found a love for nutrition, went to school, got some extra experiences, went to the University of Akron, and fast forward, did a coordinated undergrad. Once that was finished, was able to get some experience at the University of Alabama, actually not even really experienced, interviewed Amy Bragg. She is probably one of the pillars of this field. Amy Bragg interviewed me for a job that I was not qualified for. And I'll never forget, she called me and was like, hey, we went with someone with more experience. If you're interested, I have a colleague at Oklahoma that's looking for a position. So fast forward, got hired at the University of Oklahoma, worked there, worked in 3 different roles there, worked as a graduate assistant, was credentialed, was able to get really hands-on experience. I knew all the book knowledge, but knew very little of the practical performance side. So I was kind of, just jumped right into that. And very fortunate to spend, like I said, 3 positions there. Was the graduate assistant for a year and a half. Then I was the assistant director, and then fortunate enough to get the director role. All of those things have shaped me. So as a former student athlete and just having the culinary experience, all of that kind of helps guide how I want to approach student athlete care and all of the things I help them with. So fast forward to my current role and what that looks like. So at the University of Southern California, Becky Twombly years ago was able to build this program. And then, since she has moved on, different people have kind of stepped into the leadership role, but my position as the director was created upon me arriving here. So Coach Reilly, our head football coach, left. He was like, hey, what do you think about coming out to USC and working with us? And he brought me with him. And so there was a lot of things that I had to kind of get in place to even make that jump. Anyone who's worked with me knows I'm very hands-on. So I do not like to sit in an office, but as everyone who is a current director knows, you have to have those times where there's administrative work, things that only you can do. So I'm all about bringing unity, bringing collaboration, bringing a system. I love systems. I'm a type A, Enneagram 2 wing 1. So that wing 1 comes out a lot as a director. I do have oversight of football. So a big thing I wanted coming here was still having a sport. I have a full-time assistant, Bianca Paulus, with me on football. So I have a great unity of she can do things if I'm doing director work. And as a full-time dietitian, that's incredible.
I'm so sad that I missed you in LA. I feel like I left LA and then you came to LA because we knew each other when you were at the University of Oklahoma. I feel like that's when we first kind of got connected. How do you like LA? It's different.
It is different. So I will be very honest. It was a big change. So I had built a house in Oklahoma. First house, I'm young, I'm trying to build a career. And so moving to a city like LA, what you're coming into. But I love food naturally as a dietitian. So all of the food and the coffee shops, my favorite non-work, non-dietitian thing is a coffee shop. Get a book, a podcast, something that's not work related, and just kind of just be there, drink coffee and do that. So LA supports that hobby for sure.
It does. I'm living vicariously through you because I always see you're posting you're at a new coffee shop or you're going to brunch. And I'm just I love this. So fun. And also through your Instagram too, I see you making fueling fun for athletes too, which is so important. And even at the highest level, you're still making it fun, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's a priority. That's a priority.
So you said you're a systems person. Do we have a system for our pre-workout?
Working with football, every sport's so different. Every need is different. As dietitians, we find that out, just what the energy system needs are, the sport itself. And so a big thing that I try to translate is, how do you fuel to match performance? And how do you translate that to that athlete group? So obviously each sport, there's that need, but then there's the individual preferences. So when it comes to programming, currently, as we're in the winter training off-season time with football, that pre-training, fueling aspect is very different. But what I would kind of teach the guys about is, you're building a base so that when we hit spring ball in March, you're then applying it even more, and you know what works and what doesn't work. And then even fast forward to season. So in August with preseason time, and then first game starts in, end of August, early September, you're not surprised by the fuel that you're putting in your body. And that takes having intentionality and, specific systems, and everywhere it's so different. So I rely a lot on student workers, student interns to kind of pull out that vision. So, and they fulfill it. So I'm the one that's orchestrating, okay, guys, we're going to have a cart of quick energy, mix of maybe sustainable fuel is the words that we like to use here at USC, and then electrolytes. So if we kind of think more specifically here, what we do, there's the guys are going to weigh in, they're going to have more of a immediate nutrition intervention based on changes, based on what things are going on. Then they're going to go over to our fueling station and grab either a quick energy or sustainable fuel. And those options, vary from a fruit snack to an Uncrustable, and then all the way up to like a Belvita, or even fun things like gushers. So I would educate on, okay, here are the right choices, the right amount, and then what's best for you. And then after that, they're grabbing hydration. There is a certain amount they have to drink before their training session. And then we have other options like collagen, and then we provide our multivitamin pre-lift as well. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to teach them. And I start off from the basics of my strength coach, Benny Reilly, is a godsend. Him and his staff support everything that I do with my staff and I. So he gives me the space to educate the guys pre-lift. So the guys aren't coming in and just like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? I'm able to have, a minute or two to present a huge TV we have in the weight room and say, here guys, here's our pre-fuel plan. Here's what we're going to do. And here's why. And that's something I really emphasize with the athletes I work with. And what I try to have my staff also start to teach and teach their athletes is the why. So why do we have an Uncrustable and a fruit snack and a 12-ounce Gatorade or Powerade? And why am I adding a right stuff, or why am I adding a drip drop instead of this like more, okay, just do it because I said so mentality? There may be moments of that. Let's be real. We work with 18 to 22-year-olds that in practice, when they're cramping or something happens and you're like, you're not talking to them like, okay, what'd you eat today? Nope. Take the right stuff, take the applesauce, drink this Powerade, let's get it back into practice. And so I'm very aware of that timing. And a lot of the guys here at USC specifically, they want to know, like they are like, Miss Rachel, like, what if I had this, or why can't I have just 2 applesauces before a 2-hour training session? So I think the timing is a key thing too. Timing, intensity, and then time of year. So off season right now is an hour and a half to 2-hour session. And they're going from a weight session to a conditioning session. And sometimes they start the opposite way. So they may start out conditioning and then transition to the weight room, and then vice versa. So, or even our pre may be different. So guys may say, gosh, when I run and condition, I cannot eat an Uncrustable and have a fruit snack. So we would do more of a liquid type carbohydrate source. So we'll do like the Gatorades, the Powerades, simple things like applesauce, even like a smoothie, like a base fruit-based smoothie that's got very simple ingredients, easy to digest. And then we would teach them to work up to something more substantial. And that takes time. And we've got guys that are seniors or 5th years that maybe their whole career before a conditioning session can only do liquid carbs and something really easy. And that's okay. But then it's a next step of intra they're going to get something more substantial, like a bar or something that can give them a little bit extra. Again, it's so individualized, so I never want to give a pigeonhole to that, but there's a lot of intentionality to the timing, the intensity, and then what they're going to put in their body.
I'm in so much awe right now, and I have so many questions because I'm so interested in this. I think you hit on so many like important points in that. The why, like that's something that I also try to preach in my practice is like, why are we doing this action, right? You talked about sustainable fuel versus quick fuel. Like, why are we choosing these options? And then also that individualization. So the athlete understands why they're choosing that and why their teammate who might play the same position, might be a similar weight, is choosing something different. So I think that's so important. And especially like when you're building a program and that foundation of the program being like the why and individualization. Walk us through maybe some examples of, like you said, sustainable fuel versus quick fuel. What's the difference, right? You talked about sustainable being the uncrustables, the quick fuel being the fruit snacks, the gushers. Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So something, with the off-season time, a 2-hour training session, even if a guy, we call it, I like the phrase, train your gut. That's my favorite phrase. It's teaching them how to train their gut like they train their muscles and train their mind on the field. So there's a talk I do with, like, I put up a fruit snack on the screen and I talk about how quickly that, 15 to 20 grams of carbs digest and how much their body actually utilizes. And when they're well trained, they burn faster. And so going through, like, if you eat an uncrustable, okay, here's how much time you're actually going to buy. So that we have a phrase around, well, we do gummies on the sidelines as well, like sour gummy worms. So they'll speak the same language to me and say, oh, this is 15 minutes of energy, or the uncrustable, oh, this is 60 minutes of energy. So being able to get them to understand that timing, sustainable, then the quick, the easy digestion with the quick, it's going to hit them much faster so that they can, in a, let's say, a in-season training session that's only 30 to 40 minutes, something like a fruit snack or a gusher will get them through that, or even a simple 12-ounce Powerade that's got about 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, get them through that, quick session. We even have times, though, that quick fuel may not be enough for their goals. And so changing it, and that takes what we would do through a fueling plan. So each guy is going to get a fueling plan of what are your goals and what are your needs? And then what does that look like pre-training? And it does change. So we'll create a fueling plan for winter. We'll create a fueling plan for spring ball, and then summer, and then season, so that they can understand. And that sustainable fuel, the timing versus the quick, may alternate based on the time of year.
I've heard you talk a lot about like a strong fueling foundation and, like you just said, during different parts of the year. Talk to us a little bit about like the importance of the off season. I work with a lot of athletes that are like, hey, my game started 3 weeks ago and I want to have more energy and I want to fuel properly and I want to do all these things. But talk to us about the off season, because I always say that you thrive in the off season, you like survive the season.
Yeah, no, I love that verbiage. I've never thought to say it like that. So I always educate, it's a base. I'm building a base with them so that they can apply it. And then we just troubleshoot once we're in season. We're changing as things come up, but we're not learning. A unique thing with my arrival to USC is I arrived in April of 2022. So if you think about a sports dietitian, specifically in football, I missed spring ball. So spring ball happened. I came the week of the spring game. I officially started the Monday after. So I missed winter training, so that basis, and I had to play catch up. So in June and July was when I was educating and building a base. And I will attest to the support I had from my head coach, Coach Reilly, and then Benny Wiley, my strength coach, and hit all of their support staff, because I was literally playing catch up. So that importance in the football world and in any sport off season, you want to build a base, but from an education and then an application side. So performance nutrition is applying the knowledge, but then also learning what works and what doesn't work. So I want my guys, like, to come to me and say, Miss Rachel, that applesauce before lifting was terrible. I hated it. Or I don't like that, how my body felt, or I felt great with this. Like, I always give them this space to speak freely and share what doesn't work. There's nothing worse than when an athlete hides that And then you get to season, and then they say, well, yeah, all summer I didn't like eating a granola bar or a Belvita bar in the middle of training or before, because it, whatever reason or whatever happened, and then now it's not working. And I get so, I'm like a mom or like an aunt to them. I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have known this earlier. We could have changed this. So I really want to create a space where they feel open to say those things and get feedback. So as athletes, that, preseason, that out of season, off season, whatever phrase you want to say, is so important to find out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. When things don't work and athletes aren't honest, then I feel like it's just not sustainable. If they feel like they're going to get it, like we have to have an open environment or they're going to feel nervous, right? They're not, they're going to start lying. They're not going to be honest. They're not going to, they're not going to reach their goals. We're not going to understand why. So I really love that you approach it the way that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it applies to their fueling too, outside of training. Miss Rachel, I had McDonald's last night. Great. What'd you get? I love their Sprite. Yeah. Did you get me a McDouble? Like, come on. So yeah, it is important.
So we've talked a lot about like different options that you have available, right? We've talked about that quick fuel, that sustainable fuel. And I know that there's going to be parents listening that are going to be shocked that you fueled the Heisman with uncrustables and gushers. So
his favorite was sour gummy worms, to be exact. I don't know if he's listening. I just told his secret. Sour gummy worms.
Okay, sour gummy worms, guys. And we were chatting earlier. You said you've fueled 3 Heisman winners.
Yeah, so I've been a part of 3. So Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray were also at Oklahoma when I was there as a sports dietitian, and was fortunate to work with both of them. And then Caleb's my first prodigy, or whatever you want to say, student athlete that I helped fuel that start to finish. So when he joined us mid-year at Oklahoma, he was a baby freshman, and so I helped develop him from a fueling aspect in conjunction with all the other people that are so important. But he's a great kid for sure. So
this means that she knows what she's talking about, everybody. The gushers, the sour gummy worms, and then also tell us why it works, right? Like, I think there's going to be parents listening and they're like, I cannot believe that these 2 dietitians are saying, eat gummy bears, eat fruit snacks, eat gummy worms. But I don't know, walk us through why it works.
Yeah. So whenever I find out the kind of someone's favorite food or the things that they go towards, when I hear candy or sour gummy worms or gummy bears, I always get so excited. And my athletes are like, what, that made you happy that I like those? I'm like, yes, because regardless of their goals, regardless of an athlete's aspirations, having that quick fuel, that carbohydrate that breaks down to the same thing. We know if anyone ever has heard like an apple breaks down to the same thing with a gummy worms, for example, both break down to carbohydrates, the glucose, to the energy to your muscles. Obviously, fruits have fiber and other nutrients, but when we think of what the body needs, parents, is they need carbs. They need that energy for the working muscle. So if it could be your favorite candy, like sour gummy worms, and you're going to use that fuel immediately in training, why not? Because as we think of, the diet culture mindset where you can't have sugar, sugar's bad. Like, I approach that all foods fit. That's a pillar of USC sports nutrition, and how I try to, engulf that into our department is all foods fit. Tell me your favorite food that you think is not going to help you win a national championship, and I will teach you how to add it to your day. And I love when I talk with recruits or even just our current athletes, and they light up because they meet their body comp goals or they meet their on the field goals by adding in their favorite food that they thought they could never have. And that thing with candy and those simple sugars, you're going to use it on the field. My goodness, I love sour Airhead sour strips. And those, I would, as a gymnast, when I had, the old diet culture mentality, I'd be like, oh, I can't have that. I have to have honey. Okay, well, what if you love honey? What if you hate honey? Like, why not have the sour strips? Like, so it's all about allowing your body. It's that intuitive eating part that, some dietitians will talk more about, but like, that's so real. So just allow your body to have it, fuel it, use it for performance. Your muscles want it.
That's why this podcast is called Eat More Carbs.
Yes.
Yes.
We need shirts.
We do. We're going to get merch. Cool. So we've talked a little bit about like what happens at the facility, right? They kind of weigh in, they get their individualized nutrition. What's happening maybe before that, right? We talked a lot about these quick carbohydrates before, but does an athlete need to eat breakfast before a morning session? Is the quick fuel enough? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I would say as an athlete, that's listening to this, depending on what you've had before. So what's the time of day? So not only is the duration, so the duration's important for training, the intensity, what are you trying to achieve? Is it practice? Is it lifting? But then what is the time? I think that's even more important and something as young athletes maybe often neglect. And I always see that with freshmen, with mid-years. So we have a 6 a.m. group, we have a 2:30 p.m. group, and a 4:30 group. And all three of those lifts have different pre-fuel intentionality. So literally the first talk of the off season this year was, what does your day look like based on your lift group time? So as a 6 a.m. athlete, they have not eaten breakfast. The dining hall is not open till 7. And in all reality, 32 of those guys are in that lift group are not going to eat breakfast. I have veterans, I have guys that like love oatmeal or will eat like a couple bowls of cereal, but those are rare occasions. And in fact, I tell guys, like, realistically, if you can't do that, that's okay. We need to find something that does work. So then the 2:30, they have a time where they're generally eating lunch about 11:30, 12 based on classes. So they're pre-fuel like a 30 to 60 grams of carbs versus the 6 a.m., maybe closer to that 60. And even that, we give them an intra fuel. So they're getting something about an hour into the 2-hour session. That is another 30 grams of carbs. So there's a time where a guy may only be able to stomach at 6 a.m. about 30 to 40 grams of carbs, which is like a bar and a Powerade. Some may add more, but then that 2:30, they're actually getting lunch. So I don't put as much pressure on that 2:30 to say you need a huge pre-fuel, but you need to have something. And so that usually is like a bar and a Powerade, 20-ounce Powerade. So together it's about that 30 to 40. And then they still get the intra fuel. And then the 4:30 group is another unique one because they're eating lunch, hopefully about that 11:30, 12, but they have a snack about midway through, so maybe about 3 o'clock. And some guys, that snack is an Uncrustable and a Powerade, so then they just eat a Gusher packet at about 4 o'clock when they weigh in with me. So it really varies based on the time and what meal has been prior to that training session. So it's critical to time that out and work with your dietitian on that, because it's hard. And it changes. So some of my 4:30 guys, they don't want that 2 o'clock snack and a 4 o'clock snack. So we work on what works for them and what changes. But there is a different purpose for each lift group.
It sounds like if you're not lifting at 6 a.m., if you're lifting, later on in the day, you need to be eating breakfast and or lunch, and then using that 30 to 60 grams as like a fueling top off, I like to call it.
Exactly. Top off the energy tank.
Yes. So what are some examples of like something that contains like 30 grams of carbohydrates?
Yeah. So depending on the product, so we have fancy products like honey stingers, but our fruit snacks, so Welch's fruit snacks is pretty close to 30, a 20-ounce Powerade or Gatorade, whatever you have access to. We are a Powerade sponsored program, so Powerade is the go-to. Things like an applesauce. So an applesauce, depending on the brand, is about 15 to 20. So pairing it, sometimes guys could stomach too. Chews, so energy chews, fruit roll-ups. I think that's another young mind friendly. Or young
about those.
loves Rice Krispies. Rice Krispies a little bit on the lighter side, but Rice Krispie and applesauce together will get you pretty close. A handful of pretty much any sugary candy is what I usually guide. So Skittles, something that's low in fat and fiber. So a lot of when we work through kind of what we want to add into our pre-fuel time, guys will be like, oh, can we add in a chocolate? I'm like, well, what does chocolate have? How would you think that would digest well? And they're like, oh yeah, and we talk about just the fat content, and not from fat's bad, but it's going to take a little longer to digest. And I don't think I'd want chocolate before I did a training session, but every athlete, if there's one out there, do your thing, keep rocking. But a handful of pretty much any candy is as a pretty simple guideline for 30 grams of carbs.
Awesome. Look at that. Everybody, you can eat candy. We just have to eat it at the right time, right? Everything has its purpose in our fueling plan. So I love that. You talked a little bit about maybe avoiding fiber and fat. Those nutrients take longer to digest. Are there foods that you find a lot of the time athletes are eating that might be high in those besides the chocolate?
Yeah, so I would say non-football athletes, when I worked with gymnasts and, wrestlers, they'll be like, oh, I had an apple and peanut butter. And that's not necessarily a bad approach to pre-fuel, but I would always ask, like, how did that work? How did your gut handle it? What kind of training was going on? So those types of foods, like athletes think, oh, I'm doing something really good. Well, what if we did a banana and peanut butter instead of apple and peanut butter? Or maybe, I hate to say this, but like if we peeled the skin off, because the skin has that fiber. And so just kind of educating. But again, iron stomachs are a thing. I've found many athletes. I have some linemen that could literally chug, and I mean chug, a Gatorade shake, a Gatorade nutrition shake that is, about 50 grams of carbs, and eat an uncrustable, and they will be fine. And I'm like, I would vomit. So iron stomachs out there are a thing. But yeah, apples, things that like, berries. With wrestlers I've worked with, they love berries because they're like, oh, they're light and they've got all these nutrients. I'm like, well, can we have that after instead? Like, can we swap? Because they'll be like, oh, I had a banana and a chocolate milk after. Well, let's swap the banana, have that have your apple after. That's a, still kind of want more of a quick digestion for recovery as well. But I always find that they have this vision to really be ideal, but then I'm like, okay, let's I love where we're going with this. Let's take a little pivot here and see if we can optimize it a little bit better.
We've talked a lot about like candy, easy to digest carbohydrates. We also kind of just said like not to eat vegetables or fruit before practice. They obviously have their role in a fueling plan. A lot of athletes always ask me, okay, should I be having this sugar? Should I be having this carbohydrate before a training session if maybe I want to lose weight or maybe I have these body composition goals? What would you say to those type of athletes?
Yeah, so those type of athletes, I actually love those questions, especially for like a recovery or pre-fuel time. And I always educate on how that is just used directly for the muscle. The muscle wants it. It's like a sponge, pre and post. That bookend time, it really wants all this adequate fuel. We know as dietitians that, fat takes longer to get to that same point that carbohydrates do. And so the body wants to be optimal. And I have seen time and time again, athletes have changed their body composition, in the way that the direction that they are trying to achieve. Body comp changes are never good or bad. They're just optimal to what your time of year is and what your goals are. So I've seen a well-trained elite athlete lose 8 to 10 pounds of fat and gain 8 to 10 pounds of muscle by adding in quick digesting carbohydrates that they love. And so then they were able to guide again their goals and what they're trying to aspire to, but also have a positive relationship with the foods and enjoy the foods. Like, I hate when athletes are like, yeah, I eat this because I'm supposed to. What if you hated broccoli? Don't ever eat broccoli. Like, don't. Like, what food should I not be eating? Foods that you don't like. So if you like it, like, please add it into your day. So and if we have, you hear athletes say like, I can't have bread or candy around the house because I'll eat all of it. It's like, okay, well, let's work through that, because we should be able to have those types of foods around and not be deeming them as all in or all out. And so that's generally kind of how I approach that.
That's such a great approach. I want to come hang out at USC like this. And I'm a UCLA girl. Like, what is happening? I'm just so inspired by you right now. It sounds like some like key takeaways are, right? We have to understand why we're putting the nutrients into our body and why we're making the decisions that we are before training. It sounds like a lot of individualization because every athlete's going to be different. And then kind of a combination of those two, but making it sustainable, right? Making it fun, making sure you understand why you're putting the fuel into your body, why it's individualized for you compared to another athlete.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Now we talked a lot about, some of your players' favorite pre-workouts. So now it's your turn to share. I asked everybody on the podcast what your favorite carbohydrate is, your favorite pre-workout, favorite post-workout, and then your favorite pair of kicks. So,
Love it.
What's your favorite carb?
I absolutely love mac and cheese and pasta. Like, give me mac and cheese. The noodle shape is key. It is key. Some people say that it tastes different. It does. Penne pasta versus spiral versus all of it matters. So really I don't discriminate when it comes to pasta shape, but more of the shell is my go-to, but love all pasta, love all mac and cheese.
Ooh, because you get the shell because you get more sauce in the shell.
Exactly.
I like it. All right. What's your favorite pre-workout snack? Favorite pre-workout fuel?
Airhead sour strips for sure.
That's right. And favorite post-workout snack?
So if I was a student athlete, I would say my NIL deal would be with Fairlife, Chocolate Fairlife, and Cherry Bundy. So shout out Cherry Bundy, Dan, if you hear this, I would love a deal. But Chocolate Fairlife's my go-to, and then adding in a Cherry Bundy. Their pouches, they're actually, ironically, I did not plan this, but I have a pouch sitting right here.
Okay, people, sponsor her. Like.
I love after workout, and then I definitely take one before bed. So I love the little convenience of the pouch.
Love that. And this is not sponsored by Cherry Bundy. We just are fangirling over here. I love that the pouches are less than 3.5 ounces, so you can take them on the plane.
Preach.
Yeah.
For all our non-football chartered teams or athletes that are, yeah.
I forgot you're in that world. All my little Olympic athletes, like all across the world.
Yep. But charter is a little normal in my world, but it's okay.
If you decided not to charter one day, you'll be good with the pouches. Let's just say that. And then, what's your favorite pair of kicks?
Yeah, so I'm a Nike Free girl. I don't know if those are popular, but I don't really care because I don't really go with the trends. I just beat to my own drum. Nike Frees are they're very compact, and like, I can run and jump and climb on things, and as a sports dietitian, you never know what you're gonna get into. So Nike Frees don't hold me back.
Climbing over pallets of chocolate milk.
Honestly, yeah, you never know. Like, gosh. Yep, it's a Nike Freeze. I love Jordans too. Gosh, I hate that I say that, but Jordans are not as comfy. Like, unpopular opinion or not talked about, Jordans are really uncomfortable. There's some, but yeah.
But they're so nice.
They are. They look nice. So sorry, Jordan, if this is a part of the podcast.
We know she's not getting sponsored by Jordan.
Sorry, Michael Jordan, but we are a Nike school, so shout out to Nike.
Yeah, Nike Freeze. Amazing. Thank you so much for being on today. It's been so fun to chat with you, being able to hear a lot about the programming that you do, and also thank you for sharing the word about carbohydrates. It's been so fun to chat with you today, so thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, and eat your carbs.
Let's go. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, maybe they have questions about carbohydrates, maybe they're an aspiring dietitian, is there somewhere that people could reach out to you?
Yeah, so via email, emails are fun. Ask anyone on my staff. My inbox is constantly flowing. I think I have about 492 right now. All important, so don't come at me, people. We'll get back to you, but my email is my last name. And so it's Suba at usc.edu.
Amazing. I'll make sure to put it down below if people want to reach out. Thanks again for listening to the Eat More Carbs podcast. I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and then leave us a 5-star rating and review so other athletes can find us. If you ever have sports nutrition questions, I'm always here for you and would love to chat with you to make sure that you're doing everything to meet your goals on and off the field. Please reach out if you have any questions. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at reilly.beatty.nutrition. Again, thanks for listening, and make sure to eat more carbs.